My wife of 19 years informed me approximately her buddy putting her up on a blind date. She had a female's nighttime out together with her buddy Tanisha. Tanisha set her up, seemingly with a guy that she had slept with a few weeks in advance. Tanisha changed into hooking up with someone else and set my wife up with a past hookup. My wife went out at 7 p.m. and came domestic at 3 a.m. The confession came completely abruptly. She stated she turned into sorry and wanted to work on our marriage. Waterworks and begging for forgiveness. She stated that not anything befell among her and the man due to the fact Tanisha had slept with him. She knew agreeing to satisfy this guy became incorrect and going to satisfy him changed into even worse. I do not consider that nothing took place like she is pronouncing. She also stated that the guy works at a sawmill and you're making extra money. I think it really is why I'm the higher choice. Basically, all she became confessing to was actively looking to update me if she could find someone with a higher paying activity. This publish would be lots unique. Now not lengthy after this lady's nighttime out and before the confession, my wife and Tanisha had a total meltdown in their friendship. Unexpectedly, they went from great buddies to Tanisha being a liar and a manipulative, jealous individual in step with my wife. I think the confession, or partial confession, became to hold Tanisha from telling me about her snoozing with the man, gaslighting me on the truth of what virtually came about by telling me handiest partially approximately it, simplest sufficient to appearance bad, but no longer the entire ugly fact of what came about. Honesty. I failed to want to be instructed the whole lot that occurred. The holes inside the story had been too large. Little coincidences that occurred round that time positioned the entirety in best cognizance. While she told me approximately it, I lost all feeling for her. I just went numb and didn't even get indignant. I'm executed, just working on my go-out strategy at this factor, getting financials in order, an area to transport into, and so on. It without a doubt sucks that she could be willing to throw away 19 years of marriage without a regard for whatever, consisting of our children. Update. She is in full-blown panic mode. Recently recognized with an autoimmune disease wherein her white blood cells are attacking her lungs. This causes allergies assaults that regular medication can't accurate. The only drug in the marketplace that controls the circumstance has a fee of $133,000 after her Medicaid. If I didn't have truly true medical insurance through my employment, there is not any opportunity of her being capable of finding the money for it. She is attempting the entirety to reconcile, even setting up couples counseling. We made it through in 1/2 periods. It explains why she came clean on partial truth and wants to fix matters. Counseling went the manner I figured it might. Every session was all approximately the entirety I had done wrong ever, which includes my operating 50 hours each week to make ends meet because she has partial incapacity and would not work. I'm not announcing that I am best by means of any stretch of the imagination. The whole thing was delivered up, inclusive of our 2 kids, nicely, except I used to be knowledgeable that the mention of her date night turned into off-limits. Approximately halfway through the 1/3 session, the counselor looked her in the attention and asked if you have this type of excessive strength radar to discover what each person else is doing wrong. Factor that radar yourself and tell me what you do incorrect. The proverbial hit the fan. My quickly-to-be ex-wife started yelling at the counselor and wanted to understand why she changed into attacking her when we had been there, so she will fix me. After a few minutes of backward and forward, my quickly-to-be ex-wife stormed out crying. The counselor told me that my soon-to-be ex-wife has a deep hatred for me and would not assume this marriage can be salvaged. Essentially, my response was, yep and nope. I knowledgeable the counselor that I favored her time and we would not be lower back. She presented me character counseling. I informed her that I probably would inside the future and proceeded to tell her about the taboo subject matter. Useless to mention, it failed to surprise her and showed her suspicion. Unnecessary to mention, the whole ride returned to the residence turned into about what a quack the therapist was. I've basically been on autopilot when I am on the house. I consult with it as the house, as it isn't always a home anymore. I've moved into the spare bedroom. As some distance as I'm worried, I may be married. However, I no longer have a spouse. If she failed to want appropriate health insurance coverage, she would still be at the hunt. I don't need to music down Tanisha to get the complete tale. I stay in a small community of much less than 900 human beings. I commute to paintings in a larger town daily. Monday of this week, even as I'm the best grocery keep inside the network. Wager who ran into my quickly to be ex-wife? It become none aside from the blind date guy. Small towns, right? It turned into sure to take place. I used to be on the end of the aisle when he walked up to her. He's a small man, perhaps 5 feet 9 inches and 150 pounds. She had her back to me and didn't understand wherein I was. He requested her out again proper in the front of me. She did decline even though, that is after I walked up, I asked her if he changed into the fellow she went out with about 2 months ago. He requested, "What is it to me?" I sponsored him up in opposition to the cabinets and advised him that I have been her husband for 19 years. I concept he became going to soil himself. I am 6 feet 2 inches and 250 pounds muscular. She attempted to get me to back down. I growled at her to shut up. She just better concentrate at once. She started crying. I asked in the event that he swallowed difficult and stated sure. She cried harder. I instructed him to by no means let me see him once more. He apologized for everything and basically ran out of the shop. Her affair companion outed her by way of being within the wrong location at precisely the correct time. If it hadn't been him, I might have eventually run into Tanisha to get the tail. Unnecessary to say, most of the time I am on autopilot. It's as though all emotion is gone. I ought to fake happiness at the same time as I'm with my children. I do not know if it's Miles' an emotional self-protection mechanism to maintain matters from falling similarly aside. I recognize I need to be in a few form of misery over this. At some point it'll hit hard. I not agree with the things I recognize to be actual. Do my youngsters in reality love me? Or do they love the matters I give them? Do my parents simplest love the truth that I got excellent grades in school and in no way got into trouble? The handiest aspect I'm positive of is I cannot live in this sham of a marriage. I stand up, visit work, slightly consume, or sleep. The most effective people I have instructed about this are strangers at the net. I haven't anyone to talk to about this. I'm going from someday to the following pretending I'm regular. Perhaps my quickly-to-be ex-wife was right. The therapist does want to restore me. Only a short reminder to hit the subscribe button. I clearly respect it. It enables me lots. Now moving on to our 2D story. My wife is cheating with my coworker. I'm 33 male, and my spouse is 30 female. We have been collectively for 11 years, and I notion the entirety became top between us until recently. For some context, I work as a dispatcher for truckers, and it is a pretty excellent job. I get correct advantages and make enough in which we are able to both be cozy. My wife had a job with constructing gaming computers, but she lost her process due to cutbacks, so I have been the only earner. I've been selecting up quite a few hours, and in the future my car battery died on me, so I had my wife take me to paintings. When we made it to the car parking zone, I saw my coworker Andrew. I waved at him, and he walked over to say, "What's up?" It really is when I added him to my wife. She were given out of the automobile to shake his hand, and he looked at me and said, "You in no way informed me that your wife turned into so lovely." She blushed, and I laughed, now not considering it, saying, "Yeah, I am fortunate to have her." And then we both walked into paintings when I kissed my wife goodbye. A few days later, I got my car desirable and walking, so I've begun to paintings like ordinary. At some point of lunch, I could not assist but notice my spouse's vehicle in the car parking zone. So I walked closer to it and noticed her and Andrew speak me and ingesting lunch in her vehicle. I got dissatisfied, however, stored it cool and knocked on her window. She opened the door and said, "Oh, I forgot to inform you that I and Andrew have been having lunch nowadays together." Then Andrew said, "I am hoping you aren't indignant." I took a deep breath and said no and became around and walked to the automobile because if I said something else, it turned into going to start an argument. However, I can feel my wife getting annoyed due to the fact I walk away like that. Later that day when I got home, she blew up, announcing that I embarrassed her in the front of Andrew. I said, "Why do you even care? And whilst did you even start putting out with him?" She said, "I'm a grown-ass girl, and that I don't have to tell you," and then walked off. Considering the fact that then she has been distant and that I observed she's been on her smartphone more calling and texting her pals. I just know that it's Andrew. However, I don't want to accuse her. Then I am incorrect, and I look like an idiot. On the identical time, I need to say something. I do not know what to do. Update. I talked to my buddy, and he gave me an Apple AirTag. I'm going to place it in my wife's automobile and path to look if I will discover whatever and collect proof, so I do not get screwed if I'm in court if we do grow to be divorcing. A part of me does not need to do it due to the fact I don't know if I can cope with the ache. We went through loads, and I cannot consider she simply is going to throw it away this without problems, but I'm nevertheless going to ought to do it. Update number. After I commenced to suspect it, my friend gave me his airdrop, and I concealed it in my wife's car and accompanied her. She informed me that she became going to look a chum. However, I didn't consider it, so I followed her in my pal's car to make sure she couldn't spot me. After a 20-minute drive, she drove up to a hotel. I'm now not going to lie. I felt unwell, and my coronary heart kept pounding. I used to be truly hoping that I used to be incorrect and he or she turned into seeing a chum, but as a substitute, I saw Andrew waving at my female friend, and then I saw her going for walks and jumping in this guy and kissing him. I was so hurt and irritated. I wanted to get out and beat Andrew's ass and tell my wife to get all of her stuff out of the house, but I failed to. Alternatively, I took out my phone, took a few images, and drove off after I noticed him stroll into the lodge. I went domestic and cried, screamed, yelled, and punched a hole inside the wall. I called my pal to come over and confirmed him the pics and started crying once more. I screamed. 11 years down the drain. My pal gave me a hug and told me to get a lawyer and to hold stacking up evidence against her. I failed to realize if I may want to preserve up the face anymore. However, I told my pal I'll strive. So throughout those past weeks, I've been stacking up proof and maintaining my distance. I've visible them go to eating places, films, and lodges, and on every occasion at harm, but I toughed it out. She constantly advised me she became going out with her buddies or family, but I never known as her and said okay. I notion I may want to hold it up for at the least a few more days, particularly because the lawyer I'm seeing says that I've greater than sufficient proof to make certain I win and maintain the whole thing while we divorce. However, I assume I tousled the previous day. The previous day changed into my birthday, and that I wasn't surely feeling it. My spouse failed to even inform me happy birthday. However, her mother and father did. When I went to paintings, my co-employees were giving me a cake and some presents. I attempted conserving lower back the tears because for a moment I forgot about the whole thing. As a minimum until I saw Andrew. He were giving me a gift, and I faked a smile and stated thanks. When I opened it, it became the comedian Batman, demise of the own family, and I was simply amazed due to the fact nobody at paintings knew I used to be into comics, and DC become my favorite. Once I advised Andrew that, he said my wife advised him, then all I saw become purple. Subsequent issue, I know my coworkers are maintaining me lower back, and Andrew is inside the corner covering his nostril and yelling, "What the?" Then I screamed, "I understand you've got been FING my wife." Every person were given silent and checked out Andrew, and he attempted explaining it to me, but I didn't care. All I wanted to do was beat his ass till he stopped shifting. However, then my boss got here in and sent Andrew home and took me into his workplace. I instructed him the whole lot and showed him a number of the pictures. He apologized to me and gave me a few time off to type the whole thing out, and he will cope with Andrew. Things in reality went south after I were given home, and my spouse changed into waiting. She blew up, announcing that I was incorrect for doing that to Andrew and that she talked him out of urgent costs for hitting him. She stored yelling and yelling. Pronouncing Andrew makes her sense like a real female and treats her right and knows the way to make her experience unique. I in the end popped and simply yelled, "I do not supply AF." She looked surprised and went silent, and that I saved going, saying, "If he makes you feel unique, stay with him and have him aid you, because I'm completed." Then she had the nerve to cry and say that she'd become sorry. She attempted saying how Andrew stuck her at a moment of weak point. However, I simply took a deep breath and told her to get a legal professional because we're getting a divorce. She definitely tried to apologize and said that she couldn't come up with the money for one and that we needed the paintings on ourselves. But I just looked at her and instructed her to PC up. She saved crying and begging, but I just were given her suitcase and referred to as her sister to come back pick out her up. She locked herself within the bathroom, saying she might not pop out until I used to be willing to paintings matters out with her. I stored telling her that I failed to want to painting something out and that we needed area due to the fact when I noticed her, I felt irritated and harmed. She sooner or later were given out, apologized, and then packed her stuff and waited out of doors for her sister. Now I am finally inside the house by myself, and that I can't prevent crying. I experienced such a lot of matters and that I just do not know anymore. Sorry if I used to be all around the region with my submit. I'm just feeling horrible and emotional, but I'm planning on seeing a therapist quickly. I will without a doubt replace each person once all this blows over. I want to thank all people again for the recommendation and aid. That is the ultimate update from the user in this story. There are not any in addition updates as of now. If the person releases and replace in the future, I'm able to submit it with a component too, so make certain to subscribe to this channel.